Glad to have you join me once more on Housing Development, your authoritative source of housing information. I am Fleur Ani, your housing diva. June 12, Democracy Day is just a few days away. I want to use this opportunity to wish all Nigerians a happy Democracy Day in advance. Now on the program today, we'll look at housing development in Nigeria from the return of democracy in 1999 till date. We'll also look at the issue of land titling as one of the solutions to housing crisis in Nigeria, plus Housing Development Advocacy Network information webinar with astute professionals. This and more will come your way right after the trending news in the sector. Stay tuned.
The Senior Special Assistant to the President on Infrastructure, Ime Okon, says government will continue to prioritize the development of housing sector in the country. Okon stated this while featuring as a guest panelist at a webinar recently hosted by the Housing Development Advocacy Network HDAN. According to her, some of the ways through which government has prioritized the housing sector is seen in different policies being implemented, including the National Housing Project being handled by the Ministry of Housing. She also stated that although the construction and real estate sector contributes about 3% to the nation's GDP, there is more potential in the sector that could be utilized for mass housing development in order to improve the sector's contribution to the GDP. Nigeria's former High Commissioner to Kenya, Ambassador Akin Oyateru, says it is important for players in the housing sector to consider urbanization as an economic model for wealth creation rather than a social model. Ambassador Oyateru said this during his presentation at a webinar recently hosted by the Housing Development Advocacy Network HDAN on the theme Housing as a Governance Tool and Legislative Response to Poverty and Disease Control. He stated that housing has gone beyond mortar and bricks, and government in collaboration with stakeholders in the housing sector should consider urbanization as a holistic concept which is economic and can therefore be effectively utilized for development. He, however, called for the inclusion of states' contribution in the formulation of policies on national legislations and review of the National Urban Policy as well as the National Housing Policy. The president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Lekwa Izuta, has emphasized the need for city planning and slums upgrading as part of efforts towards restructuring and repositioning housing as a tool for disease control. Izuta stated this while speaking to issues during HDAN's recent webinar, adding that government must see housing as both an economic venture and also a social activity. He explained that there is the need to plan for the future, replan existing places, and also ensure the availability of basic facilities at the appropriate locations, as slum proliferation has always been associated with increased crime rates, hence the need to upgrade slums all over the country.
Hello, my name is Casey Arrest. I'm the Executive Director of the Centre for Affordable Housing Finance in Africa. We're based in Johannesburg, South Africa. Please keep watching Housing Development Programme. It's a great show.
For more housing news stories, visit www.africanhousingnews.com. Housing is still a major challenge in Nigeria, especially with a huge housing deficit. Over the years, there have been various interventions by the Nigerian government to address the issue of housing shortage. The question is, how well has democracy improved the housing sector? The next report takes a look at housing development in Nigeria from 1999 till date. Let's have a look.
Nigeria is perhaps the fastest urbanizing country in the African continent. One of the most important challenges facing the country is the provision of affordable housing. This report will take a look at housing development in Nigeria from the Democratic Dispensation 1999 till date. The Obasanjo government was marked by the establishment of the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development and a proposal of the multiple housing reforms, including the restructuring of the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. These policies also became an offshoot of professional bodies like Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria, REDAN, and Building Materials Producers Association of Nigeria, BUMPAN. During this period, the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development was established from the then Federal Ministry of Works and Housing. The period between 2000 to 2004 policy focus was on the private sector to serve as the main catalyst for housing delivery in Nigeria, while the government concentrates on the provision of basic infrastructures on the new housing and development. Issues in the Land Use Act were equally given attention for review, as well as the financial structures such as the FMBN and provision of incentives to developers in form of tax holidays for 5 years. The Nigerian National Housing Policy in 2006 was as a result of the inability of earlier policies and programs to adequately resolve the backlog of housing problems in the country. This policy came up with some transitionary strategies in which government made significant effort in partial disengagement into housing provision and encouraged privately developed housing. Under the policy adjustment, such as the amortization period, which was 25 years under the previous policy, was jacked up to 30 years. Interest on NHF loans to PMIs were scaled down from 5% to 4%, while the lending rate to contributors is reduced to 6% from previous 9%. In 2007 to 2010, during Umaru Musa Yar'Adua's administration, while there were no grandiose ambitions about housing, one of the points in his famous 7-point agenda was land reforms. While hundreds of billions of dollars have been lost through unused government-owned land assets, changes in the land laws and the emergence of land reforms is supposed to optimize Nigeria's growth through the release of land for mass housing, commercialized farming, and other large-scale businesses by the private sector. The final result is supposed to assure improvements and boosts to the production and wealth creation initiatives. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to see this through. On 18th April 2009, when the National Technical Working Committee under the Housing Thematic Area of the Vision 2020 was inaugurated, they were asked to make recommendations towards contributing of housing to Vision 2020 goal of the federal government. Part of the vision was to make the housing sector one of the top 3 contributors to the nation's economy by adding 10 million decent affordable homes to the national housing stock by the year 2020. It was suggested that for Nigeria to meet up with its housing needs by the year 2020, the federal government must provide the legal and regulatory environment that would attract public-private partnership, PPP. In 2012, Goodluck Jonathan announced that the federal government was committed to revolutionizing the housing sector by translating the National Housing Policy and National Urban Development Policy into a roadmap for housing development in the country. In line with this, NMRC was established for mortgage refinancing with the support of World Bank. The Buhari-led administration introduced new initiatives to tackle housing delivery, like the Family Homes Funds and National Housing Program, with construction ongoing in about 34 states, the Federal Integrated Staff Housing, FISH, in 2016, and My Own Home Scheme in 2017. In all of this development, it is, however, important to note that the government also needs to focus on other components of large-scale housing development like land, finance, infrastructure, building materials, and labor in order to completely achieve delivery of affordable housing in Nigeria.
I am Dr. Sam Egu, Senate Committee Chairman on Housing. Keep watching Housing Development Program.
That's a report on the dividends of democracy in the area of housing. Now to speak to us further on this is Honorable Bala Kauje, a member of the Board of Trustees of Real Estate Developers Association of Nigeria. Take a listen.
Basically, one would say that the major housing delivery outfit in the country that has been on ground for many years ago is the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. Before now, the speed with which the organization delivered houses was far below expectation, which led to advising the Minister of Housing Power to change the structure of the Federal Mortgage Bank when Buhari-led administration came in 2015. Their structure of housing delivery is one of the best we have. My reason, of course, is that, you see, they target directly the low-income earners, who are very large in numbers. Before now, it's quite difficult to get low-income earners in large numbers, particularly outside the federal capital. If you go to the states, you finally had low-income earners who can afford even the 6 million to 15 million loans that are given to people to afford their own houses. But with the family home strategy, whereby they have houses that are 2.5 million threshold, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, 6 million, to a maximum of 7 million. The technology, the design and the technology that is being utilized by family homes, they will be able to provide, I believe, across the country, over 2 million homes in a year. And if they are providing 2 million homes in a year, it means they can be able to employ more than 6 million of our youth. And that's a good help coming from the government. Transition from one democratic government to another is helping us a lot. And I also do believe that there are many opportunities there out, with some of these, let's say, IMF, the World Bank. There are many opportunities where money can come into Nigeria for housing development at a very low interest rate, which is not being utilized by government. And I like to use this opportunity to urge the government of President Muhammadu Buhari to exploit these areas. There are many of them, and that will help us to cover the gap of the deficit that we have. That's why I am happy with the family home strategy. It's a very important strategy. I'm happy with it, and I know that it will get this country out of the woods if properly supported.
My name is Tunde Reis. I'm happy to endorse the Housing Development Program. I encourage you to continue to watch the Housing Development Program.
Welcome back. Glad to know you're still with us. That was Honorable Bala Kauje, a member of the Board of Trustees of REDEN, speaking on the impact of democracy in housing. Now, one governor that has used housing to meet the needs of his people at this time is Governor Ben Ayade, the governor of Cross River State. This governor has shown great concern about the homelessness of the IDPs in the state by building houses for them. Now, let's take you on a journey to Cross River State.
I am shocked that with all the lawyers we have in this country, with all the civil rights movements, they watch as my people, the people of Bakassi, bleed and live where they fetch water, defecate on the same land, feed on the same land with no hope. Yet the country watch, yet the country allocates in billions on elitist projects and programs. I think that if there is a moral conscience today, if there's anything I have done that is worth it, it is this project. It is my #1 project Because indeed, I celebrate today because God has given me opportunity to put a smile on somebody's face. I could see a grandma dancing to her new home. I could see the hope. I could see that her grandchild would have a feeling that truly, truly African leadership cares. You don't give because you have enough, but because you care enough. But because we care, even from the north in the State House, we must demonstrate the empathy and the show of love and concern for our brothers. We must at this point handhold each other and provide a shoulder for our weaker brothers to lean on as we go through the process of the expansion of this estate to accommodate more people. I am lucky because I have a circumstance akin to yours, and so I feel you and I know your pain. But please, let's take today to dance. Let's take today to celebrate. Let's use today as a day to tell a story, a reverse of all that has been your experience, that finally you have a home called your own. You have a house that is yours. You can get a certificate of occupancy. This is the first social housing in Africa, in absolute terms, where the ownership is in perpetuity, where the property is yours, where there will be no time you say the parents, you can now move and let another person enter. No, it is your house, it is yours to keep forever and ever. We will continue to expand it. It is not enough to provide you housing, because this is not shelter, this is housing. It means it has amenities, it has power, it has water, it has all the utilities you will so need. You have solar lighting, you have the generator, and you have the third grid, which is the national grid. But today I'm going to also assure you that we have acquired boats, which are by the waterside, to enable you to do fishing for those who can fish. We have also made provisions for cash. So we have a takeoff grant of 50 million to support all of you who live here, who want to start small businesses.
Governor Ayade is surely a social housing governor for the month. Now, this is a special appeal to other governors. Please make housing your topmost priority. Provide houses for your people, as no one deserves to be homeless.
My name is Munia Tagma. I encourage you to watch Housing Development.
The Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDN, also recently brought together astute professionals on yet another webinar platform to cross-fertilize ideas on the theme Housing as a Governance Tool and Legislative Response to Poverty and Disease Control. Take a listen.
The importance of housing to man stretches beyond just a basic need for survival. It is a tool for societal regulation and a means of protection from danger and diseases. Essentially, the situation of housing in any clime has a multiplier effect on all other sectors. All individuals that constitute the labor force of any country definitely live in a house, and this crystallizes how the quality and quantity of the available housing stock within a country impacts on not only the well-being of the people, but also the strength and development of such an economy. In the light of this, the Housing Development Advocacy Network, HDN, recently brought together astute professionals on a webinar platform to cross-fertilize ideas on the theme, Housing as a Governance Tool and Legislative Response to Poverty and Disease Control. HDN Director, who has also been the moderator for the webinar series, Barrister Festus Adebayo, commented on how the Nigeria's housing challenges have made full compliance with the COVID-19 prevention measures a Herculean task, while an expert at the University of Lagos, Professor Immaculata Nwokoro, highlighted the importance of proper housing on the well-being of the people and the nation's economy.
COVID-19 rule says there must be self-distancing. A man who is in poverty has wife with 10 children. They are living in one room in Masaka. How are they going to obey this self-distancing?
People stay in houses that are helpful. It means they will have less expenses on healthcare. There will also be higher productivity from individuals. And of course, this will automatically contribute to the growth of the GDP.
On his part, the president of the Nigerian Institute of Town Planners, Lekwa Izuta, expressed the need to reconsider planning as part of efforts towards positioning housing sector as a tool for development, just as Nigeria's former ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Akin Oyatero, pointed out that urbanization should be regarded as an economic development model and not just a scholarly concept.
The government must see housing as both an economic venture and also a social activity. People have to be housed. People have to have where they live. Right now, we are talking about there is this lockdown. Everybody is back home. Some people don't have home. Others can't even maintain the social distance we are talking about in those places.
Urbanization has many strands. So instead of looking at it only as a social model, which has been what has hitherto been the practice, you have to start looking at urbanization now as an economic model that is, a work, a creator, is a job, a creator.
While also speaking to issues during the webinar, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Infrastructure, Ime Okon, explained that government is prioritizing the growth of the housing sector through different initiatives and policies, while Nigeria's former Minister for Mines and Solid Minerals, Architect Musa Sada, emphasized the need to rethink and replan the nation's policies on housing.
Construction and the real estate sector has over the years been very central to the economies of most countries, especially the developers. So where we see the construction industry contributing about 30 to 70% to the GDP. But unfortunately, in climates like ours, we've seen the last check I did was the Q3 of 2019, where we see that construction and real sector contributed about 3% to GDP. So there's potential for growth in that sector. So it's only logical that any government will prioritize, construction through mass housing development.
We never expected this to happen. But what it exposed us to is the weakness of our own standards,
yes,
of our own policies,
yes,
that we need to go back to. So if we have to learn anything from this going forward, is that not just this, any disease will ravage us if we play around with our housing policies.
The stakeholders, however, expressed optimism for the housing sector as the sector holds great potentials that could be exploited for economic development, and government should do well to urgently attend to the housing challenges in the country. Housing Development Advocacy Network. We are the leading events and webinar platform in African real estate, a platform to connect with stakeholders in the housing industry across the globe. Our platform has over 1,000 live viewers per webinar, over 20 African and international countries. We engage a heterogeneous audience composed of decision makers. With over 120 minutes per webinar, you can reach over 40,000 global and Pan-African audience. Join Nigeria's leading brands, sponsor a webinar episode or series, or host your own webinar through our platform and speak to your own audience. Through our platform, you can reach a new audience composed of real estate developers and investors, property owners and facility managers, banks and financial institutions, construction and civil engineering firms, managing directors and chief executive officers of companies, wholesalers, retailers, property agencies, and even more. For inquiries, call the numbers displayed on your screen. The Housing Development Advocacy Network webinar platform is proudly sponsored by
Surely there is a great hope for the housing sector in Nigeria, as the sector holds great potentials that could be exploited for economic development. Now, have you registered for the Digital Abuja International Housing Show 2020? If you've not, then you're missing a great deal. The show will be coming up soon. Now, here is a quick one from the organizers of Abuja International Housing Show 2020. And that is it on housing development today. Thanks for watching. Please do connect with us on social media, on Facebook via Housing Development Program and on Twitter via Housing Program. Like and interact on our posts. I love your feedbacks. Also remember to go to Housing TV Africa on YouTube and click on the subscribe button. Thank you. I'll see you soon. Remember to stay safe always. I remain Fleur Ani, your housing diva.